And I think we're streaming live as well, is that right, Tremaine?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is all going live to anyone who's locked in as well, welcome. This is the second leg of this Pioneer training tour that we've been doing. So yeah, we've actually been up here before. I don't know if any of you guys were here last year for the wireless tech tour. We had loads of new products. We had the CDJ 2000 Nexus and the XDJ Aero mainly that were supporting wireless connectivity. So we've done a tour of the UK kind of showing the new functionality that we put into the products. And you obviously would have all seen, because you've all registered tonight, we've called this one the Digital Choice Tour, just because there's so many products in our range now, and it's, you know, it can be a bit mind-boggling and there's a lot of choice. So we were kind of we were looking to put this on and show you a few things and hopefully, you know, help you decide which way is the best way to go for you in the Pioneer range. So yeah, I've got this camera zooming in on what I'm going to be showing you tonight, so you can see and so everyone can see live. So yeah, man, our product range, it kind of splits up into two sections. You've got like the MIDI controller range, which we're relatively new to. We've launched our first MIDI controller 3 years ago, the T1, DDJ T1, and we've gone, you know, leaps and bounds since the first one. In the last year, or just over a year, we forged this partnership with Serato. So the Pioneer Serato partnership come together with the DDJ SX, and since we launched that, that was like #1 controller on the market, man. It's there you go. You couldn't even buy one at first. There was like 600 back orders across the UK, so it was crazy. And just because of the success of that, you know, it was so successful for a couple of reasons, and we're going to go on. I'm going to kind of talk you through them on this product here. But you know, with the success of that, we developed the range. We built kind of an S product, a DDJ S product, at every point in the marketplace. So there's one for £200, the DDJ SB, that's really accessible, really affordable. Then we've got the £500 one, the DDJ SR, the SX, which is like the, up until now, was the premium model, the £810 one. And now we've kind of brought this into play, the DDJ SZ, and it's, yeah, a huge beast. Like, standing in front of it at first, it feels like, you know, it feels like you've shrunk until like you get used to it, and then it feels like the SX has shrunk when you stand in front of that. But yeah, this, you know, up until now, every MIDI controller out there, you know, if you go down the MIDI controller route, as opposed to the other side of our range, which is the more traditional CDJ and DJM mixers, that kind of setup, which has kind of evolved into a record box setup, which I'm also going to talk about tonight in a moment. Yeah, up until now, if you went down this route, you kind of, there's no doubting it definitely made it more accessible. All these MIDI controllers out there, you could get a reasonably good DJ setup for like very little amount of money. But you sacrifice a couple of things. One being generally sound quality. You'd probably have slightly less sound quality than you'd expect from professional products, and you'd also sacrifice size as well. So even the SX, as good as it was, you've still got smaller jog wheels than you'd expect to find in a club setup, than what you'd expect to see in a nightclub. So, and as well, the ergonomics, you know, the layout of the product, it just feels like smaller. It feels like no matter what MIDI controller you're using, it always seems to be a little bit smaller. So this, I really think this is the MIDI controller the market's been waiting for. And this is like a replication of our CDJ and DJM series mixers. This is a dedicated Serato DJ controller, so you can see up on the screen. I'm going to try and get the laptop in there as well, so you can see both if I move that hand out of the way. So yeah, Serato DJ, the new version of, I suppose, SL. You know, this is where all the development's going into in Serato DJ and Serato Intro. And it's a licensed bit of software. You need to either pay for it or buy a controller that enables the software to be activated. So as soon as I plug my USB into the controller, into the laptop, the software springs into play. And it's a really good bit of software. You know, is anyone here using software programs or Serato DJ even? Anyone on Serato DJ? Yeah. So you're using it already. New version, or not all of you, some of you. A new version come out yesterday, or the day before, 1.6. Wicked features in that, and support for a whole load of, well, the SL boxes, you know, the old the main mixers, and our controllers as well, the new DDJ SZ. So yeah, quite short on time. We've got an hour and a half, and there's quite a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. So I'm not going to harp on too much. I'm going to jump straight onto this and show you how it works. I've got that laptop hanging over slightly, but that's cool. So yeah, man, you've got essentially life-size DJM mixer in here. This is essentially replicating the DJM 900, and I'm going to move the camera around in a minute when I focus on the mixer. And then either side of that, you've got these platters, which are inheriting a lot of the technology from CDJ 2000s. Feels very similar. I'm going to focus on this for a moment. Like, even though this is all one unit and it's all solid, it's only 10 kg, so it's not that heavy. It's lighter than you'd expect looking at it, but it still feels like it's substantial. It still feels like it's very well built. Now, focusing on this has got its own aluminium faceplate here, as does this, as does this. So even though they're all joined together, they're essentially their own independent units for servicing, repairs, etc. You've got familiar sections. We've got the same transport controls on the CDJs, exact same feel. You've got exact same size platters. Slightly different technology though. This is the same as the DJS range. You can hear this is silent. It's non-conductive, so same as an iPhone screen. It responds to the electricity in your fingertips, whereas our professional CDJ range respond to pressure. They're ball bearing loaded, which is why you can hear that when I spin that around. It makes a noise, whereas this one doesn't. It's subjective as to what you prefer. To me they feel exactly the same. When you've got music on, you don't hear that noise anyway, and it literally really does feel the same to me. You've got jog feeling adjust and stop time, so allowing you to adjust mechanically how tight this is. So if that's all the way to heavy, this is going to stop relatively quickly. And when we load up some music, it's a bit more obvious, and it just makes it a bit more accurate for pitch bending. Whereas if you go all the way to the left and go light, it will continue spinning, and it's for scratch DJs, very loose. Same tempo control as you'd expect to see on all other CDJs, and same rotary pot up here for selecting your tracks. So standardly on a MIDI controller, you'll have a rotary pot in the middle, on our range anyway. You'll turn that to select your music, just like I'm going to do now, and you'll see that scanning up and down my Serato playlists over there. Let's go to, when I show this, I generally show it with hip hop to start with. I'm a house DJ, but a lot of the features on here are kind of work very well with hip hop music. Press that down, it's the exact same feel as the CDJ. There's no rotary in the middle, and then in separate load buttons for left and right. You've got independent rotary control on each side, so it does really feel like you're on a CDJ setup. Once that's loaded in, so I've loaded the track in, you can see the waveform up on the software as well. The next most visual section is the 16 performance pads. So on each platter, on each side, we've got 8 pads. RGB pads now, largest performance pads on the market as well, so these are 30mm squared. So really chunky, really in your face. It doesn't really show on the screen as well, but if you look on the hardware, you can see how visual that is, the colours. In the new software as well, you can change the colours of these as well. Now, at the minute, I'm using these as hot cues, but you can use them as 4 different ways. Exactly the same as the SX. So a hot cue, standardly, lets you jump to a specific point of a track. Get some sound. Get that a bit louder. So yeah, a hot cue enables you to jump around the track. Now if the track is playing and you're hitting hot cues, it's going to jump to that point and it's going to play instantly. And that's pretty much how all systems work, all software programs work. They're live when you hit them, and they're hot, they actually play. You notice as well, they're coming in on time now, they're quantized. No matter how out of time I hit that, in the new Shotta DJ software we got quantized hot cues. So usually they'd be like this. Unquantized. It's nice to have the option to be able to turn quantize on and off by holding that down. So they're always coming on time. For me, that's wicked, because I play house music. I want to be able to use hot cues while I'm mixing 2 tracks. So having quantized hot cues works really well for me. Certain DJs like Zane Lowe, Kissy Sellout, their whole set revolves around, if I turn that off, creating patterns with the hot cues. Mine doesn't, but for DJs that do, and they're mental on the hot cues, on the CDJs, then they want that to be turned off. So it's cool to be able to have that now. That's something Serato was missing for a very long time, that quantized feature. But yeah, instead of them actually playing live, like most systems do, if you stop the track, you can actually use them as a drum machine. So that's one of the key things I like about Serato DJ as well. If you've got a track running on the other side, something like Dizzy Rascal, you can use the pads here to actually, like a drum machine, and that's where the colour coding comes in really useful as well. You can set out different drums, different percussive parts, different snares to be assigned on here, and really straightforward. Up in the software, you can't actually see that, but you literally just change the colour up on here. If I put all these to be red, so that's quite obvious on the camera, you can see the colour changing. Really useful, and you've got how many colours to change from. You can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 3 colours, so there's hundreds, 18 colours there, yeah, my maths ain't on point. So, if that track's running, right, so, really nice, works really well with hip hop music. I'm not a percussionist. I'm not very good at finger drumming, so that's why I use hip hop to demo that as well, because it's a little bit slower. But I've seen people do some crazy stuff with that for house music as well. If you're into your percussion, your finger drumming, you can use that really well. The second method, roll. Do you know what? I'm going to jump to something I know, jump to some house music. Roll method. So this enables you, it's the same as on the CDJ 2000, we got slip roll. You can actually use each one of these pads now to turn on a loop. So if I choose this one, you can see it punches in a 1-beat loop up on the software. If I let go, the track has continued to play underneath. So if we scan in a bit to where the big bass comes in. Track's still playing whilst I'm holding that down underneath. So you can choose different size loops. Cool thing about this is it's easy. It don't require a great deal of practice to do this. It works really well with vocals as well. And it's nice to have effects that you want to master and figure out things that you can do that no one else can do. It's also nice to be able to step onto a controller and do something really quickly that's straightforward. And our DJ and mixers have that as well. There's generally 2 elements, the effects you want to master, and then like the instant gratification effects as well. Last method, slicer. Slicer is actually only going to work on tracks that have been beat gridded. So you can see if I load up another track straight away, these will go red, and up on the waveform here, if I hit 1, the track is now split up into sections of audio. If you've got an SX, you'll be familiar with this because it's the exact same way of using it. Each section of audio is displayed on here as a different colour, and you can choose to repeat whichever section you want. Works better with vocals. Wait for the vocals to come in. You can change the speed at which it repeats as well. If you hit the parameter to the left, there's a knack to getting it in time though. You're remixing on the fly. You don't have to adhere to the structure of the track that's running, It's almost like the dicers. If you've ever seen the dicers, I think it's Novation dicers. You've got all of that functionality built in here, so it's just nice to have it all on board now. Lastly, sample triggers, very straightforward. So inside Serato DJ, you've got 4 banks of 6 samples. You've got a panel button up on the top here, exact same as the SX. If I hit this, it changes the view of my software on here. So at the minute, I'm standard. Now I'm seeing the record view. Now I'm seeing my effects view. So we've got 2 banks of internal effects inside the software. And I think there's more in this new version 1.6. Anyone using this that's seen that?
Yeah, I think there isn't 2 more packs.
There's another pack. Cool, really cool. Usually you're limited to the effects that are in the software, and you have to wait for updates to get new ones. But on this, you can download packs of effects on Serato DJ. And lastly, your sample view. So there we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots, and A, B, C, and D behind that little hand on the screen. You can see if I hit this pad, it's hitting play on that sample. Really straightforward. It's not a live sampler, it's just sample triggering. But yeah, really cool the fact that you've got 4 banks of 6, so you can jump to different banks, hitting your parameter here. So you've got, let's scan back to A, there you go.
Welcome to the tunnel.
Now there's shift functions for all of these as well. So each of these, hot cue, roll, slicer, sampler, if you hold down shift, you're activating like a secondary way of using these. So there's like 8 ways of using them really. If I jump to hot cue, you can see they're all a certain colour. If I hold down shift and hit that, they change colour, and you're now using cue loop. It says underneath this in little white writing underneath each button what the secondary function is. Cue loop is sick. So standardly a hot cue plays, and it will play from that point. But if you go shift and hot cue, it will do the same thing, but it will also assign a loop. So now it's jumped to that point, but it's also jumped to a loop. Really cool. I always work in loops when I'm DJing on the CDJ, so it's wicked to have that functionality in there. You can instantly jump to any kind of loop that you want to, any kind of hot cue, but it will start looping from that point as well. They all work, they're basically all loop functions. So it's the secondary function of roll is to do the same thing, come out of this loop. So the track's playing, I've gone to shift roll, which is save loop. Actually it's slightly different with the secondary function of roll. You can save 8 loop points across the track, and you can turn them on and off before you've reached them. So that's really useful. You can have a, let's say you've got a track that's really good for 2 minutes, and then it goes off on one that, or it goes into a breakdown that you don't want it to jump into. To save remembering to turn the loop on before it gets to that point, when you load the track, you can actually save it. So if I jump in halfway through the tune, set a loop, yeah, using this, bang, set, 2-beat loop. If I'm on the shift function of roll, which you can tell because it's on orange, and I save that as 8, that's now there for me. Let's jump back to the start. I'm at the start of the tune, I can turn this loop on and off, and you can see up on the software, you might not really be able to see it, there's a little line just up there on the waveform that's come on, just there. It's really tiny, you can't see it unless you're actually looking on the screen, but that line's coming on and off as I'm tapping this on and off, so I'm getting it ready, so when it reaches that point it will start looping instantly. That's pretty cool. Slicer loop, this is the one that does the exact same thing. So I've jumped into slicer loop, and now it's going to keep looping the same section of audio, simply because I was in shift mode with it. So if you're jumping to a key vocal part, you can just jump to the shift slicer, and it will always start looping. Secondary mode of sampler is velocity sensitive. So control how loud it comes in depends how hard you hit a pad. So if I kill that, so you can actually control how loud it comes in. You can see the volume up on here, all the way up. I'll tap it lightly all the way down. The SX does that as well, if you didn't know. You can hold it down on the SX and it will activate it just by holding that down. Last time I ever done this when I was DJing was when I was like 16, but a lot of DJs still want to be able to do that. You know, on the SX you've got two pots at the front which are pad jog wheel sensitivity, so they're allowing you to tailor how sensitive you want these to be, but they're just replicating on the SX what this is actually doing mechanically using this feeling adjust. So on the SX you can't really do a rewind because it stops very quick unless you do that. On this you've got the natural feel, so you can mechanically actually change it, and if you want it to slow down when you're stopping it, like the old Technic sound, you can do that using the stop tone. So it's kind of feels like, it pretty much does feel like you're on a set of CDJs. There's no visual display on here, but that's when you're looking at the laptop, you know, you're using the software for that. Zoom back up. Lastly, on the players, you've also got your auto looping technology down here, your buttons down here, just for jumping in and out of loops. So, bang, half a loop. You've got your slip mode at the top, which doesn't illuminate at the minute, but slip mode will be, with slip mode on, the track will continue to play when you're stopping underneath. So basically means you can jump to hot cues. You can stop the track. And it's still playing underneath. And it was to jump to that hot cue, and when you let go it jumps back to where it would have been. Same as our CDJs. We've got a reverse button, which is a slip reverse as default, and of course needle search. Now, anyone who uses the SX, you'll be aware that this is on all the time, and you've probably learned to work around that, because if you accidentally brush against it, it's going to jump through into the track, and you embarrass yourself. So after you've done that once or twice, you always avoid it when you're reaching for your effects up here. This is the same as the CDJ, it's off. It's set to off until you put your hand on the platter or pause the track, and then I can scan through my needle search, like so. Jumping above, you've got your two effects banks, Effects Bank 1 and Effects Bank 2, and these are the effects that are built into the software. So if we hit panel select and change that to effects view, you can have them in two different modes. You know, it's not really a Serato lesson as such, but you've got 12 default effects that are built in here. You can hold down shift and you can choose which effect you want to have. That hand is right in the way, I don't know how to get it off. So yeah, holding down shift and tapping one of these 1, 2, 3 buttons here, you can scan through which effect you want to use. So one of the 12 default effects, go to version echo, turn that effect on, turn the rotary pot up. You hear it, pretty standard, you know, method of using it. Control the effect time. And they're the ones you can really master and take as far as you want to go. No, I don't really use Serato a great deal, to be honest with you, so I'm not massively familiar with them effects, but I've seen some people do some crazy things with them. If you wanted to use them in a different mode, at the minute we've got 1, 2, 3 effects. So 1, 2, 3 controls. But you can hold down shift and tap this last button here, and the mode changes to single effect, but with a lot more control. So these pots, now I'm on a reverb, let's change it to a delay. Pan delay. Now, This will turn it on and off and turn the effect on. And these will allow you to manipulate different things, different parameters. The width, the feedback, the amount, the time. You can reverse it. You can loop it, depending what effect you're using. Depending what effect you're using, you can you're going to have different control over that. But there's software effects, and that kind of takes me on to the mixer section now. Of course, you can see this is a 4-channel mixer, and it is a standalone mixer. You'd expect a unit like of this size and this weight and this price tag to be a standalone mixer. You can run turntables into the back of this. You can run CDJs into the back of this, and everything I'm going to show you on here is internal. It's not software based. It's actually built into this. So any external sources you're running in, all of these effects will work with that as well. Let's zoom in on it a bit so you can see the buttons a bit better. So you've got scratch fader first of all, exact same as the DJM T1, the tractor mixer that we developed a few years back, 2 years ago. Really slick fader with feeling adjust. It kind of brings me back to the hip hop thing that I mentioned earlier. And you've also got curve adjust on the front of the unit as well, so you can sharpen up and have the cut of the fader to be as tight as you like. Really robust channel faders, P-lock fader caps, so these don't come off. They're locked on there unless you actually want them to come off. There's a trick to taking these off for repairs, but yeah, they don't come off, and you can't pin them off into the crowd or whatever, like I've done many times on the old mixers. You've got 6 of these silver pots. I'll try and do everything left-handed so you can actually see it. 6 rotary pots up here. Now these allow you to control these 4 effects here. So we've got sound colour effects taken from our DJM series. We've got filter, jet, pitch, echo. And if I get some music running, you can actually hear them, because you turn that off. You can't hear them on the video for this, so it's nice to hear. Filter standardly works in the way of our DJM mixers, exactly the same. You press the button so it's flashing and it's active, it's ready to go. Then the channel that's delivering audio, in this case channel 2, you choose that pot, turn it left for low pass, quite straightforward, turn it right for high pass. We've also got jet, a bit of an old school one. Sounds really good though. Pitch, lower, higher, and echo. This is really nice. So depending how far you turn this, depends on the echo time. Or post fader. So you hear the echo tails bleed through afterwards. Near the different echo times. Turn it to the right, get more high frequency based echoes. So yeah, that's really nice. And the fact you've got 6 of these means you can apply them to the master, so everything that's coming out of the master channel, each of the 4 channels in here. And this is sick, the fact that you can apply them to the mic. So I know there's a lot of drum and bass guys play on this station, there's generally MCs, you know, you can twist out the MC using this, pitch his voice down. I'm not using the mic channel on here unfortunately, so we're using the mic on the mixer. But yeah, apply echo to the voice, that's always a nice sounding effect. Or just filter them in and out as well, which is really cool. This is new, these little red effects that you're seeing over here. Oscillator effects. Now this is pretty unique. In fact, it's not on anything. I'm just loading up another tune in our range. Not that. So oscillator effects. They're basically 4 samples that you can choose where they're sent to as well down here. So we'll choose to assign them to either channel 3, channel 4, or the master. Have them to channel 4 at the moment. Got volume control. So you've got white noise. That's just a sample that's going to play out. It's like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Then you've got cymbal, siren, and horn. Cheesy sound on its own, right? But because these are being fed through channel 4, you can apply these effects to them as well. You can pitch them down. And you've got this sub-parameter control here as well. So this is what really makes it unique. If I've got siren running, I can use the sub-parameter use it with the filter as well. So, you know, for creating intensity, breakdowns, build-ups, these two, you can play them all together as well. These two are really kind of high frequency based. Just use them with the filter on the track. Whereas these two are more kind of tonal. Really unique, man. I'd like to see this on our actual mixers. I don't know if that's just going to remain unique to this product, or if that's going to, you know, be incorporated into the rest of our range as well. I'd like to see that in the professional. I'm just looking at time, guys. I'm not checking my text or anything. So yeah, man, some pretty cool features on this. The sound card as well. You're not what's the word? Compromising audio quality at all with this. You've got 2 internal sound cards, 24-bit 96 kHz sound cards, same circuitry as the DJM 900 Nexus. The fact that there's 2 sound cards, you've got 2 USB ports on the back, and if I slide this out, you can see we've got USB A, USB B, USB A and B. So I'm playing off my Serato library here. You could come up and use B, and we could have both of our libraries here. You could have that deck, I could have that deck at the same time and play back to back. Or just swap over, you know, seamless switchovers in between DJs. Whether or not you see this in venues, I'm not sure, but we see so many people with CDJ 2000s still at home, you know, people that are forking out on that at home, because it is the best thing to use, the CDJ 2000 Nexus, and I'm going to go through that in a minute with Recordbox, but it's got a very high price tag. So this is going to retail in March for 1,750 quid. So it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than a set of CDJs, and you are pretty much getting the whole functionality of this. I thought this was ridiculous when I first saw it, but now I'm, you know, since I've used it at the start of this tour, I really like this, and it does feel like you are DJing using a professional piece of equipment. It's a really nice feel. Of course, you need to use a laptop with it as well, though. But that kind of takes me on to the next thing, which is our setup over here, and the next piece of software that I'm gonna talk through. So, what I've just shown you is there's zoomed in look at Serato DJ as well. So yeah, what I've just shown you there is amazing, and it's a very good replication of a CDJ setup. But it's not quite the same for a couple of reasons, in my opinion anyway. So the whole software thing, Serato, does everyone in here use a piece of software when they're DJing? Is there anyone that doesn't, I should say?
Majority of the time I don't.
You don't?
Majority of the time I don't.
What else do you use?
I just use the 2000, not Nexus, and DJM 900.
Yeah,
and
CDs?
And 2 vinyl decks whilst I'm DJing. But I just use the Serato in just as a backup.
Right.
If there's anything I need or anything.
What are you putting into here? What are you playing on this?
Through Recordbox.
Okay, so you're on Recordbox, yeah. Alright, so yeah, man. Software. I switched to using a bit of software like years back, and it seemed like the ultimate answer for me anyway at the time. and that's why everyone started using it. When CDs made vinyl the limited media, and everyone was using CDs for years, and then software programs come out, and what you could do on them was ridiculous. You couldn't do what you could do on this, on a CDJ 1000 and a DJM 800. You couldn't loop a track perfectly when you're mixing. You still had to have a wallet full of CDs, you know, and that's the whole reason I switched to using a piece of software, was because I wanted to loop a track at the end, and I just couldn't do it on the CDJ 1000. So it was amazing. I was like the #1 advocate of this bit of software, but it was the bane in my life trying to set it up every time. It was just killing me. It was really stressful. The thought when you get into the club, I just want to play. I don't want to have a technical battle of setting things up. So eventually, I switched to this, and this is Rekordbox. This is Pioneer's piece of software. So I switched to this, and the idea of this, I'll get rid of that. The idea of this software is you throw all your music into it. It analyses your tracks. So everything below my mouse there is my track collection. So that's where all my music goes. I navigate through that track collection using these little panes at the side. Each tag does various different things, and then everything above it is my player window, which kind of replicates like the window on the CDJ. And the idea of it is you throw all your software, all your tracks in there. You get them into playlists in here. You can see I've got some serious categorization going on. You categorize your tracks. You can tag them in different ways. If I go to collection, you can give them ratings. You can give them colors. You can add in Kuvo messages, which I'm actually going to leave you with a video explaining what Kuvo is at the end. You can kind of organize your tracks at last. You know, I've used every platform out there. I want vinyl, CD, software, back to CD, back to software, and I've never had a way of, except for vinyl, I've never had a way of organising the music. Vinyl's easy, isn't it? You've got 110 tunes or something and you sort them out. It's really straightforward. This is since then, you know, all of that time I was just battling trying to organise and find a system, and it isn't until I started using this that I've actually got into a good system of knowing what I'm doing and what music I've got as well. And I treat every tune as if I'm buying a vinyl as well. I don't put anything in here unless it's playable. I don't bung it in, like, because you get loads of music. People give you their hard drives and it's very easy to throw stuff in. But now I'm very selective over what goes in it. And yeah, the idea is once you've done all that, you put a USB stick into your computer or an SD card, and you export all of these playlists to your SD, and then you take that with you. You take that to the nightclub, your SD card or your USB stick or your hard drive, if you want to play off a terabyte hard drive because you've got loads of tunes, and you plug that into the CDJ, and then everything that you would only be able to do from a laptop with Serato, with Traktor, with Virtual DJ, all of the quantized looping, all of the navigation of your tracks, the searching, the hot cues being loaded up, your tracks having all that information saved to them, is all done straight from the hardware. So it's like all of the pros without having to take this and without having to set this up. Obviously the main downside for anyone that I used to always hear people say was, well, nowhere's got these. But it's less and less an issue nowadays. I don't know what it's like down in Preston, but generally around the place, like Manchester's really good now. There's very few places that don't have these. And what is it like around here? Is it getting better?
It's getting better.
The old CDJs, maybe they were built too well now, but they were like, the youngest one is 6 years old now. You know, the last one off the factory line is 6 years old. So there's only so many times venues can refurbish them, that can get them serviced, and there's only so many times they can listen to their DJs, their resident DJs saying, get new kit, we need new kit before they do it. So it's getting better and better. And we've just launched the CDJ 900 Nexus as well, which is a lot cheaper than this. If you're getting a pair, you're saving yourself like 600 quid, and it's near on the same experience as a 2000. It's really good. The old 900 was there was a jump from the 900 to the 2000. It was really noticeable, whereas now they're near on the same kind of thing. So yeah, like this, I'm not going to go on about Rekordbox for too long because it's an hour-long session in itself, and I'm not going to harp on about this for too long, but I'm going to whiz through it and throw a track in there and show you what I do to every tune and how to get the most out of it. It's kind of a really condensed crash course. If you want any more information on this, just get at me on Twitter or Pioneer's Twitter, and you know, we'll answer any questions you've got. If you want to get on Pioneers, it's at Pioneer UK. Mine's at Rob Anderson DJ, and you know, if I don't know the answer to the questions, well, I have a colleague that will do. So there's, and you can also let us know if you want to know more stuff. You know, if you want to get more sessions going up in Preston. But yeah, let me jump into it and whiz through it. So, if I was playing this weekend, I'm going to go in here into my playlist and let's create a new playlist. Right click, create new playlist, call it Shotta. I've got nighttime. That's my storage for all my nighttime music. So that music goes at the top. Grab some tracks from there. That's how I intend to play these three. It's a pretty short set I'm going to do. I'm also going to throw in some new music. If you're starting out using this, your first step is to get tracks in there. So you can actually access your iTunes library directly from in here. Bridge, the iTunes bridge. So, everything I ever download, not that. Everything I ever download and intend to DJ with goes straight into my iTunes collection. And it goes into this playlist here. You'll see all my playlists here. It's a clone of what's in iTunes because I dragged all of these playlists. Sorry, it's a clone of what's in Recordbox because I dragged all of these into Recordbox when I first got this laptop. So let's say I've got a new tune, and I think I've got one out here that I was going to throw in. You know what? It's in a folder. Two. So that I want to throw this in. So drag it over, drag it into iTunes, into this playlist, nighttime. I organise this playlist by date added, so everything new goes straight up to the top. Then I quit it because Recordbox ain't storing your music. If you've got tracks on your desktop and you drag them into Recordbox, it's not duplicating them. It's just reading them from your desktop. So you need to store your tracks somewhere. Because if you then drag them in and you then delete them from your desktop, Recordbox is going to lose them. So I store everything in iTunes in that one playlist and I never touch it again. All my work is done inside here. If I go to Bridge now, go to iTunes, go to playlists, go to where I just dragged that track, nighttime, it's there, it's good to go. But I need to drag it into here. I need to also see my playlists. So instead of switching windows like this, if I hit this little side pane, display this pane horizontally, I can see both. This is my main window here, and then this is my side pane over here. And this is free, this software. You can download this from pioneerdj.com. It doesn't cost anything. So if you're DJing out, I recommend you download this, and because chances are you're going to be seeing some Nexus products at some stage. So yeah, start prepping your tracks. I've then got to drag this track straight across. And what it's going to do, as soon as I let go and drop it in there, it starts analysing it. There you go, it's analysing that track. And it's doing two things. It's analysing the key, it's figuring out the key, there we go, E flat minor. And it's also analysing the BPM. It's giving the track a beat grid that determines that track is 122 BPM. Let's go in and give it a colour as well. Where's my colour thing? Yeah, so let's tag it in bangers. Don't know if it is. That's not actually. Let's put it in favourites. I used to have like a proper detailed colours thing, but it was getting a bit confusing. I used to tag them, have 8 different tags. This is a bit simpler now. And then a lot of DJs, that's all they do. They create playlists. They put the tracks in their playlist they want to play off. They then put their SD card in or the USB stick and export the tunes. But in order to get the most out of it, because there's a lot of quantized information you can use on the CDJs, if you want to loop perfectly, the loop points snap to the beat grid that the track's been given. So the best thing you want to do is check that the beat grid is right by dragging the tune up here. And you can see straight away, it goes, it loads it up and I'm going to plug this in so you can hear. And it there we go. It loads it up and it looks like a CDJ. What you've got your transport controls. You can set cue points wherever you want. You can set hot cues. You can assign loops, and that will continue looping. You can scan through the small waveform up here. Come out of the loop, like so. Scan through the track. You can add your artwork. You can drag artwork in. You can save cue points as well. But before you do any of that, you see these dots: red, white, 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 red, white, white. That's your beat grid. Anyone that plays house, it generally picks it up to be pretty good. But I always check it anyway because I want it to be perfect. Anyone that plays dubstep or drum and bass, bit of a different matter. You're going to have to check every track because no one's made an algorithm that can can determine the beat grid of a dubstep or drum and bass track accurately for some reason. And that goes for all the software programs. Sometimes it can pick the tracks up to be half speed or double speed. Have you ever pressed sync? Has anyone ever been using Tractor and you press sync on a drum and bass track and it goes half the speed? That's because the track has been determined to be what, like 76 BPM instead of 100, double that. So let's go in. I'm going to hit this drop down menu, and you can, if you hold your mouse over anything, it tells you what it's going to do. So this is allowing me to adjust BPM and beat grid. When I hit it, bang, the little dots turn to lines, and you can see more visually what's going on. And you're also displayed with these controls, and they allow you to shift the beat grid left and right and adjust it to be correct. But first thing I do is always put this on, and you can tell now if that's in time or not. Sounds like it is. Sounds to be correct. If it was going to go out though, that beat grid, it would go out towards the end. Mate, that's spot on. That wouldn't really even need editing. But you can zoom in if you're OCD, and you can check, make sure this is perfect. Let's for instance say this looked like this. I'm going to throw it off. Looks completely wrong. And let's say it picked it up to be 121.98, which sometimes it does. It's going to go further and further out towards the end. So what you can do, these three buttons, go to the start of the track, and this takes about 10 seconds per track when I do this. This button will shift the entire beat grid across the whole waveform to the right. If I hold it, you'll see it, there you go, gradually moving across. The opposite one will shift it to the left. But the quickest way is to just move the playhead where you want it to be and hit the centre button. So if we go there, make sure it's bang on, zoom right in. So it's starting there, and hit the centre button, bang. Pretty good to start with, but that's going to go out and further out as you go through. So it's gradually drifted further and further. And when I'm at the end of the track, that's when I use these two buttons to correct that. You can either shift left, and these basically are now shrinking the beat intervals. So the first beat grid marker I've set will stay where it is when I press this button, but the beat grid markers, every other single one across here, is gradually going to shrink in. And you can see when I've just tapped that, the tempo's changed to 121.99 instead of 121.98, and it's going to gradually get closer and closer as that gets on point. When it goes, there you go, 122. Let's go a bit further so it's spot on. Or if a track has been perceived to be 121.99, you know no one has produced at that tempo, you can just click on here and go 122, bang, and it will move the beat grid around for you. If I tap in 123, look at the beat grid, it moves. 122. If anything's going to fry your head, it's going to be that. That's the concept of beat grids. It took me a while to get to grips with. And I've explained it to people a few times before they've got it in the past. But you basically just want them lines to meet the track, the beats, the transients of the beat, and you want the click to be in. Or else, when you go to start assigning hot cues, if I want to assign a hot cue here, this drop, turn this quantizer off now. If I go to press A here, I'm going to put, if I press A, first of all, it sets hot cue A to be there, in the middle of a beat, where you don't want it. You want it to be on the beat grid. So if I now to put quantizer on, everything I set, I'll get rid of that, and press it again, you see it snapped it to the nearest beat grid marker. Perfect. And also, if I want to set a cue, if I go to press Q now, bang, snaps it. You can then press memory, and that's saved as a cue point there, somewhere you can jump to instantly when you load, every time you load this track, should you want it. Set a cue point there as well. Press Q, press memory, it's now saved. In fact, it needs to be there, doesn't it? That's the drop. Let's get rid of that. Q, memory, bang. And when I put this into the CDJ in a minute, it becomes a bit more obvious why. But I set a cue point at the main drop, so because the CDJ will count down to that point. I also usually set like set a loop, 4-beat loop, save that as a hot cue, and it's going to be recalled on the CDJ every time I load this tune up. The last thing I always do as well is at the end of the track, set a 16-beat loop. While it's looping, instead of pressing hot cue now, press memory. That's going to save. It's giving me the option to make that loop active. You see, instead of just saying nothing, it's saying active there. That's because there's currently a loop running on this track. If I now press active, the loop goes red. And you get a little red icon, or not a red icon, a little red line there. It's called an active loop. Every time the CDJ reaches this point of the track, snaps into a loop, and it will just continuously run. And it's you know, it's a fail-safe. You probably have mixed out of this tune by here even. It's quite a long track, but you just in case you're distracted or you're talking or for whatever reason you have to leave the booth, just means you're never going to run out of music. It's going to always jump into that loop, which is really useful. You know, that's really skimming the surface of what you can do in this software. You can also customize how this appears on there. You can also save all your CDJ settings to there. You can use this hardwired in if you wanted to. These players are linked via, so you'd have this player, this imaginary player, and this mixer all running into a network switch. If you then run a network, which is here, so just like a Netgear network switch. Just pulled it out. If you also run the computer into that, you get a little link icon on the bottom left pop up. You could press that and drag and drop. The CDJs appear on the bottom, and you can drag and drop tunes to the CDJ. So you can use the laptop if you want to. That's the way I use it at home, because then you can be DJing on the CDJs, dragging tunes around and organising your playlists, and you don't have to export till you go to DJ. So you don't have to. You do all the prep work whilst you're mixing. But I'm going to put this in. Put the SD card in, and there's a reason I use SDs. These are really fast. This one was 50 quid for 32 gig, and it's if anyone uses this or has tested it, or you've heard anyone say, "Oh, it's rubbish. It takes ages to export." It's not the software. It's your USB. That's how long it takes to write tracks to that USB you're using. So you'll see on this, if I right-click on Shotta, and bear in mind there's only 4 tracks there anyway, but if I press Untitled now, export playlist, I'm rushing through it, sorry, let me explain. Right-click on Shotta, export playlist to Untitled. The last track is the only one that it wrote there, but you saw how quick it wrote it. The other 3 are already on that memory stick. It zipped through, and it's exported that track in a second. There's 400 tunes in my collection, and it took like less than 5 minutes to export all of them to this SD card the other night. Really quick, 95 megabytes write speed, so you can get USBs that as well. USB 3, don't use USB 2 because they're really slow. and these are really good. SanDisk Extreme Pro, they're called, and I'll show it to you in a second. Once you've exported it, go to devices, and this is where you customize the USB. Choose how you want it to appear on the CDJ. You can set up auto sync as well, so every time you plug it in, just like the iPhone does with iTunes, you know, auto syncs, all the new music goes straight on. You can do that on here now as well, like ticking that. But yeah, eject it. Once you copy data to an SD card, you've got to eject it. If you pull it out, you're going to have corrupt data. Now, that is the extent, you know, it's a longer process to talk you through it, but it really is, to me, the obvious choice to go to a club with this. If you need masses of music, take a hard drive. I mean, it's just so much bloody easier than taking a laptop. That laptop's like £1,200, it's brand new. There's no way I'm ever taking that to a club with me. Yeah, for me now it's just literally that. But of course it does depend on the venue having a record box ready player. So ideally you can play off record box on an 850 or a 350. If the venues have got them, it's fine. But ideally 900, 2000, 900 Nexus or 2000 Nexus. If you've got them, then especially if they've got these, man, there's no other reason to use anything but this, in my opinion. If you've never seen this, this is the CDJ 2000 Nexus. This is our flagship multi-format player, and in my opinion, the best thing you can ever DJ on. I've really, you know, I've never really, until I started using Recordbox, like I said, I was in a bit of a confused state with my DJing, and it was always a bit tricky. But now, you can play off USB. I'm actually charging my phone off it right in a minute. Get it out of the way. You can play off USB. You can play off SD cards, which I'm going to do. You can play off CD if you want, but you're really only getting 10% of what this can do if you play off CDs or you don't use Recordbox. Zoom into this top section a bit so you can see it. And you choose what source you're going to play from here, so whether that's disc, USB, if you want to read a USB or SD card from a linked player on the other side, you can do. You can read up to 4 players if you want. If you want to hardwire your laptop into the Pro DJ link, like I just mentioned, you can drag and drop tunes on the laptop to the CDJ, or you can just press this Recordbox button and browse your laptop on here. Or close that, let it read, and press SD card. Now the first thing you're going to see, as soon as I press SD, it prompts me. My settings data has been found. Press the menu button to load. So it goes green as well to indicate which device it's actually reading the music from. If you get to a club, and someone's been in this utility menu here, changing all the settings, like I don't know, LCD brightness is down, this is on +10, this is off, your master tempo, sync is on, you don't want sync on, everything that's in this utility menu, if you hold that down, you can see there's a lot of settings there, can be changed and saved to the SD card. All you've got to do is press menu, choose load, and bang, your settings come up. If you're playing, I play off 3 of these, so it's a pain in the arse to have to change all of them. So it's nice just to be able to menu, load, press link on the other one, menu, load, link and load, link, menu, load on that side. Just makes things a lot swifter, and everything goes to how I want it. This illumination comes on, that goes to +6, this comes bright. The illumination on the front is this brightest, master tempo's on, sync is off, although I generally do use sync now as well, quite a bit. The next thing you see, these are your search categories. So this is what makes it really easy to find your tracks. Playlists, you're seeing all my Recordbox playlists in here, daytime, nighttime, nice nighttime, filth. The way I categorise my music is all displayed. I can also browse by key if I want. Rating is a good one. I rate all my tracks by energy, so number 1 being warm-up music, number 2 being a bit harder, and so on, right the way up to the top, till they're the ones I very rarely play because they're really, you know, that's like 6 in the morning music. If I jump back, playlist is pretty much how I work. You can also search as well. If you jump to search, you've got this needle search here, you can jump through, search some of my stuff, backspace, really straightforward.